Welcome back to Cityline. With me is somebody who we love having on the show. We're talking about Mr. Curt Bailey. He is the president and CEO of Bloodworks Northwest. And we're here to talk about, Curt, how our blood levels are. So first off, I want to say thank you for being here and happy holidays to you and yours.
Well, happy holidays, Amanda, to you and yours as well. And I'm just thrilled and honored to be back on the show. It's wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you as well. So December 18th, which is actually today, is State Blood Donor Day in Washington and Oregon. Curt, can you please highlight why we celebrate this day?
Well, December 18th, as State Blood Donor Day for Washington and Oregon, commemorates, well, really two things. First, it commemorates very specifically the Amtrak derailment of that date in 2017. And on that day, a number of passengers were tragically harmed, and over 150 units of blood were used in the treatment of those hurt passengers. And the community heard about the derailment, and individuals across our states came into blood centers in order to donate blood to care for those injured. And it's an amazing thing, one human being choosing to act to save the life of another. So that's the immediate reason why we celebrate that day. But the other reason is maybe as a bit of a reminder that every single day, in a sense, is Blood Donor Day, because the vast, vast majority of days, there are patients fighting cancer, having transplant procedures, postpartum bleeding, gastrointestinal bleeding, trauma, and they need blood. And in fact, 1,000 people per day need to donate blood in the Pacific Northwest so that we can simply meet the everyday demand of patients across our community that need that life-saving gift.
You know, Curt, you have painted the picture so beautifully when we think about why we should donate blood, and then what does that blood do for us? Who does it go to? So many times I know in my past, before you've educated me, I thought just donating blood was just for a surgery or just for a national disaster. I didn't really understand that it was for people who are fighting cancer right now, which cancer has affected my family so deeply. So it sounds like what you're saying is there are almost two banks of blood. There is that bank for emergencies like the Amtrak accident that happened 2 years ago. And then there is a blood bank for just daily blood and also those conditions that you described.
Well, that's a good way to think about it. We never want to see the blood supply dip below a certain level, because we're kind of we're cutting into the stockpile, and we have that stockpile on hand every day just in case. And so what is the just in case scenario? Well, it's frankly a mass casualty event. Or it could be we have really terrible weather and donors who were going to donate for a few days, well, they can't. And so now not as many units are coming in as we normally have. And so we keep that buffer there. But it's kind of like that money you have in your savings account that you hope you never touch. It's for that really bad day when you really need it, but you never want to touch it. Well, we have a certain level of blood on the shelves that we never really want to touch. We just want to have that there just in case. And therefore, every day, we need the 1,000 people to show up and donate blood, because that's how many units are going to get used every day in all the hospitals up and down the Pacific Northwest.
So tell us, how are we doing right now with the current state of local blood supply?
We're actually, in a sense, doing really well, but my job is to make sure that we do excellent, because we want to keep the community safe under every circumstance. Throughout COVID-19, the community has turned out and donated blood, and we've had solid inventory, and we've gone to great lengths to encourage the community to donate blood regularly and by appointment. So what we're endeavoring to do now, because we're appointment only, is really get it planned out so we know, hey, we've got full schedules weeks in advance and we don't have any worry about hitting a dip when it might be really hard to recover from that, given that we're appointment only and we're also approaching the months of the winter where sometimes the weather interferes. So yeah, the inventory looks good, but does that mean the future inventory looks good? Not necessarily, only if everybody makes their appointment, keeps their appointment.
So you mentioned this phrase, appointment only. And in my history of donating blood, I have walked out the door and walked into a beautiful blood Winnebago that was very posh, had the best grape juice and the best cookies. And these people, they have hands that are kissed by the angels. You don't even feel it. It's so effortless. But I have a little voice inside of me, Curt, that says, I can't just step out my door and hop into a Winnebago because you said appointment only. So what does it mean, appointment only now during this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, back in the early days of the outbreak in the Pacific Northwest in late February and March, Bloodworks made a number of changes to keep donors and staff safe. And some of the changes were appointment only for all of our blood centers, where one can't just walk in any longer. Instead, you got to have an appointment, and that allows us to space out the donations over the course of the day. And it keeps the centers from ever becoming congested. And that's important because we need people to practice social distancing. The other thing we did is we did mothball for now those beautiful posh blood buses. And we instead, for the obvious reason that you can't social distance on a blood bus. They're just too cramped. They're too tight quarters. And what we've done instead is we moved to this thing called a pop-up donor center. And a pop-up donor center is often in a really spacious venue. Might be a venue that can't be used fully during the pandemic, like a sports venue or a museum or a concert hall. And we actually set up a blood center in that location for days or weeks or months. And again, really spacious. It's appointment only. We can practice all our cleaning protocols in that space very easily and reliably. And so we're just keeping the donor base safe. Keeps our staff safe too. And the other thing is you can donate blood at some really remarkable places. So donating blood, looking up at the grand ceiling of the Paramount Theater, donating blood after walking through the atrium of the Boeing Museum of Flight, donating blood while looking out over the field at CenturyLink, that's pretty cool. So we think it's also a great opportunity to give these spaces second use and inspire our donors to come on in.
I think it's a brilliant win-win, and that's what I think it is. So if you have had COVID-19, if you've sadly had COVID-19, which is such a reality, we have 90 people an hour in the United States coming down with COVID-19. Is it still safe to donate blood?
Not only is it safe to donate blood, it's life-saving, potentially, to donate blood. So there is no risk that a COVID-19 patient, recovered or not, can transmit the virus through their blood donation. So that is not a risk. There's never been a single case of a coronavirus transmission through transfusion. So not an issue. The opportunity to save a life comes from donating your blood if you've recovered from COVID-19, because in your blood, there will be the antibodies that helped you combat the virus. And those antibodies circulate in your blood plasma. And when you donate blood, whole blood, we're going to separate those antibodies out in that plasma. And that's going to go to a patient who's fighting COVID-19 today. That's going to be part of their treatment therapy. And then we're going to ask you to come back and donate only plasma so that we can get even more. And that's going to go to maybe 3 or even 4 patients who are fighting the virus. And we have good preliminary evidence that suggests these antibodies in what's called convalescent plasma from patients who've recovered, do reduce mortality, so it reduces the death rate, and that it does help their recovery. we don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox for fighting this really horrid virus. So we're using what we got, and one of them is convalescent plasma. So anybody who has recovered from it, please come on in. We'll test you for the antibodies, and we'll encourage you to come back if your antibody levels are high enough so you can save a life through your donation.
Curt, how often can a person give blood?
You can give whole blood every 56 days. And so what I like to do is I make an appointment at the end of my donation. So we do a lot of asking nowadays. Hey, do you want to rebook your next appointment? Kind of like my dentist does. My dentist figured this out years ago. I never leave the dentist's office without my next appointment on the books. Well, Bloodworks is doing that now too. And so after your donation, we'll ask you, hey, will you make your next appointment? And we hope folks will, in order to just get them into that habit of, for whole blood, it's every 56 days.
So one of the questions I think that comes up a lot when people think about donating blood is, first off, what blood type is the most sought after? And then what blood type do I have?
Well, all blood types valuable because, we're in a community with all blood types. And so anybody could be a patient who needs blood, whether they're A or they're B or they're O neg or O pos, doesn't matter. They could all be patients. So we want our donors to look a lot like our population. We want that diversity in their giving of their blood donation. All that being said, the O blood type is transfusible into patients who have A, B, AB, or O blood types themselves. So it's more versatile. And sometimes O neg, which is O negative, which is even more versatile, is called the universal blood type because any patient can receive that donation. So if you're O positive or O negative, we would love to receive your donation because that is in relatively higher demand, but all blood types are always needed. And what's important for people to know, Amanda, is we don't waste blood. If you come in and you donate, your blood's going into another human being in just a few days. This is not a massive warehouse full of blood, some of which expires. We run a lean, almost just-in-time system. So if you donate, patient's going to get your blood and they'll get it within a few days.
Curt, I just want to say thank you so much for breaking this down in such a heartfelt way that really helps at least myself understand and feel how important blood donation is, how simple it is, and how it truly is the gift that keeps on giving. I couldn't think of a better person in a better position than you to help us understand that saving lives is just a little poke and an appointment away. So thank you so much for all that you do, and thanks for being here today on Cityline.
Well, it's my pleasure, Amanda. And if I might share a quick story before we close for today. I was in one of our pop-up donor centers, wonderfully hosted by actually Amazon in downtown Seattle. And I walked in to say thank you to the donors, and their donating blood were a number of young people. They're certainly a lot younger than me. And I started chatting with one, and I asked what had brought her in that day. And she said, I came in to donate blood with some of my friends. And I chatted with some of the others and learned that one of these young persons, he had always wanted to donate blood, and he decided he would, but he didn't want to go alone. And so he asked if anyone would come with him, and all three of his roommates said yes, and all four of these university students actually came in and donated together. And so that was their Christmas gift. That was their holiday gift to the community, to all donate blood together on the same day, 4 roommates coming in, university students. And for me, I think that's pretty special. That's a pretty amazing thing to be witness to. And it's a gift of their role modeling and their example, and 4 units of blood.
That's a gift of hope. and you know what? That's a shot in the arm we'll take any day. Curt, thank you again so much. And I can't say it enough for all that you do. We are so grateful.
Well, thank you, Amanda, for having me, and happy holidays.
So we are still in the process right now of practicing social distance. That means please wear your mask, wear your gloves, keep some good spaces between you and those, but it doesn't mean that you need to isolate your heart. So please reach out to those who you love and those who you know and those who you have not heard of, and make sure that they are emotionally safe. And when you come back, as always, we'll be waiting for you right here at Cityline. Take care.
Tacoma, that's my home, yeah, Tacoma, that's my home. Tacoma, that's my home, place I call my own. Tacoma, that's my home, yeah, Tacoma, that's my home. Oh, you're from Seattle, oh, you're from LA, oh, you're from Chicago, but Tacoma's where you'll stay. Oh, you're from Seattle, Chicago, but Tacoma's where you'll stay, yeah. Tacoma, that's my home, from the fires to the loam. Tacoma, that's my home, yeah. Tacoma, that's my home. Tacoma, that's my home, place I call my own. Tacoma, that's my home, yeah. Tacoma, that's my home. Oh, you're from the easy. Tacoma's where you'll stay. Oh, you're from the easy. Oh, you're from Green Bay. Oh, you're from Atlanta, but Tacoma's where you'll stay.